The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors have been proudly serving the people of this community since 1918. Service is our motto. The poor, the rich, the middle class and all are given the best of care and attention at all times. You have the privilege to select what you want. In your time of need, contact the capable, the competent, and the dependable staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home who is genuinely concerned with your care. At J.W. Williams Funeral Home, you are aptly served by the proprietor president, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, who continues the traditions and values set forth by the past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. Your announcers for the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Sunday morning program are Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Reverend Isaac H. Owens, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, Minister Frankie Harmon, Miss Sandra Johnson, and Deacon Earl Clark, Jr.
Thank you, and good morning, friends. We come to you this morning to bring announcements, dedications, and songs. We certainly hope that your day may be brighter after listening to our program. The family of Mr. Eddie Louis Gaines of Cordele, Georgia, the family of United States Army veteran Mr. Charles Edward Harmon of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Tommy Lee Kendall of Unadilla, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for the food, the flowers, the condolences, and all other expressions of sympathy and kindness shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. Mr. Eddie Louis Gaines, age 57, of 1649 Welch Worley Road, Cordele, Georgia, died Sunday, December 26, 2021, at the Tift Regional Medical Center in Tifton, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Eddie Louis Gaines, age 57, was held Sunday, January 2nd, at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Portico in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Isaac H. Owens, pastor of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church, officiated. The burial followed at the Pleasant Hill Church Cemetery, Hatley Community, Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted sons, Mr. Rictavius Dion Gaines of Sandy Springs, Georgia, his beloved grandchildren, Master Rictavius Dion Gaines Jr. and Master Kingston Dion Gaines, his loving and devoted sisters, Mrs. Cynthia Ann Jones and her husband, the Reverend Dion Jones of Cordele, Georgia, and Mrs. Daphne Teresa Malone and her husband, Mr. Abner Malone of Byron, Georgia. His beloved aunts and uncles, Mr. Bennett Butts, Mrs. Ernestine Butts, Mr. Rufus Butts, and his wife, Mrs. Janet Butts, and Mrs. Willeen Covington and her husband, Mr. Elmo Covington, all of Chicago, Illinois. And Miss Bernice Williams and her husband, Mr. Patrick Williams of Carrington, Georgia. A beloved and devoted great aunt, Mother Martha Ruth Westbrook of Araby, Georgia. His beloved nieces, Ms. Raven Curry, Mrs. Shanteria Curry, Cameron Curry, and Shakiria Royal. A host of devoted cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends, to include a special friend, Miss Manny Sanchez, survived Mr. Eddie Louis Gaines, age 57, of 1649 Welch Worley Road, Cordele, Georgia. United States Army veteran, Mr. Charles Edward Harmon, age 60, of 1512 South Pecan Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Thursday, December 30th, 2021, at his residence in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service with military honors for United States Army veteran Mr. Charles Edward Harmon, aged 60, was held Saturday, January 8, 2022, at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Portico in Cordele, Georgia. His beloved cousin, Dr. Frankie Harmon, pastor of the new St. Stephen's non-denominational church, officiated. The burial followed at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his beloved daughter, Miss Vankisha Harmon of Cordele, Georgia, his devoted father, Mr. Silas Harmon Sr. of Cleveland, Ohio, his loving and devoted sisters, Miss Dorothy Harmon and Miss Cassandra Harmon, both of Cordele, Georgia, Mrs. Erica Hardiman and her husband, Mr. Richard Hardiman of Ellenwood, Georgia, and Mrs. Jan Everett of Stanford, Virginia. His beloved brothers, Mr. Silas Harmon Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Denise Harmon, Mr. Jeffrey Harmon, and Mr. Tony Harmon and his wife, Mrs. Shanteria Harmon, all of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved aunts and uncles, Mrs. Yvette Adams and her husband, Mr. Alvin Adams, Mr. Willie Coleman and his wife, Mrs. Ruby Coleman, Mr. Willie Frank Coleman, Mrs. Willie Pearl Reed, and Mrs. Mother Jessie Kate Harmon, all of Cordele, Georgia. Mrs. Catherine Taylor, Mrs. Claire Pearl Putman, and Mrs. Ossie B. Coley of Cleveland, Ohio. A host of devoted nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. United States Army veteran, Mr. Charles Edward Harmon, age 60, of 1512 South Pecan Street, Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Tommy Lee Kendall, affectionately known as Tom Slick, age 70, of 1550 Borum Street, Unadilla, Georgia, died Saturday, January 1st, at his residence in Unadilla, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Tommy Lee Kendall, affectionately known as Tom Slick, age 70, was held Saturday, January 8th, at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Portico in Cordele, Georgia. His pastor, the Reverend Willie Green, pastor of the Forest Chapel Baptist Church of Pinehurst, Georgia, officiated. The burial followed at the Forest Chapel Church Cemetery in Pinehurst, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Miss Demetrius Kendall and Mr. Richard Ross, both of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Maurice Gary, his wife, Mrs. Joanna Gary of Reading, Pennsylvania, Miss Christina Gary of McDonald, Georgia, Mrs. Yvonne Griffin and her husband, Mr. Robert Griffin of Perry, Georgia, Miss Kimberly Kendall of Atlanta, Georgia, Miss Takesha Taylor of Ashburn, Georgia, Miss Tiara Bowens and her husband, Mr. Stevie Bowens of Albany, Georgia, Mr. McNulty Kendall of Newark, New Jersey, Miss Tawala Brown and her husband Reginald Brown of Somerville, North Carolina. 26 beloved grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren, his beloved sisters, Mrs. Adelia Kendall of Florida, Miss Sally Ruth Kendall of Sebring, Florida, a beloved brother, Mr. Sammy Kendall of Cordele, Georgia, his beloved aunts, Mrs. Lizzie Barnes and Mrs. Hattie Mitchell, both of Delray Beach, Florida, his beloved sisters-in-law, Ms. Rosemary Flenor of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Mrs. Amanda Crane and her husband Rufus Crane of Warner Robins, Georgia, Miss Geneva Breen of Albany, Georgia, Miss Maddie Flagg of Atlanta, Georgia, and Mrs. Annie Jean Gay and her husband Mr. Donnie Gay of Atlanta, Georgia. His brothers-in-law, Mr. Melvin Taylor and Mr. John Taylor, both of Unadilla, Georgia, Mr. Clement Taylor and his wife, Mrs. Betty Taylor of Fort Myers, Florida, Mr. Walter Taylor of Perry, Georgia, and Mr. Ron Edwards of Elko, Georgia. A host of beloved nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends, to include his special friend, Ms. Yvonne Harriel, and his friend, Mr. Farrah Taylor Sr., Mr. Charles Taylor, and Mr. Bob Williams survived. Mr. Tommy Lee Kendall, affectionately known as Tom Slick, age 70, of 1550 Borum Street, Unadilla, Georgia. Again, the family of Mr. Eddie Lewis Gaines of Cordele, Georgia, the family of United States Army veteran Mr. Charles Edward Harmon of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Tommy Lee Kendall of Unadilla, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. May God bless each of you, is their prayer. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Vienna were in charge of each of these arrangements during the past week. And now, it is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcements. Mr. Ray Charles Ingram, age 68, of 132 Mixon Street, Unadilla, Georgia, died Sunday, January 2nd, at his residence in Unadilla, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Carol Faye Fudge of Unadilla, Georgia, his beloved and devoted children, Mr. Tellis S. Fudge of Unadilla, Georgia, Miss Beverly Manning of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Miranda T. Fudge of Perry, Georgia, and Mr. Ray C. Fudge, Jr. of Unadilla, Georgia. 12 beloved grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren, his beloved and devoted sisters, Miss Mary Sipp and Mrs. Della Daniels, both of Warner Robins, Georgia, Mrs. Ruby Thorpe of College Park, Georgia, Mrs. Idine Gordon of Unadilla, Georgia, a beloved daughter-in-law, Miss Jessica Fudge of Vienna, Georgia, his beloved sisters and brothers-in-law, Miss Felicia Caldwell, Mrs. Amanda Worthy, and her husband, Mr. Curtis Worthy, and Mrs. Yolanda Davis, all of Unadilla, Georgia. Miss Janet West of Vienna, Georgia. Deacon Ronnie Brown and his wife, Mrs. Sophia Brown of Cordele, Georgia. Deacon Donnie Brown and his wife, Mrs. Valerie Brown of Perry, Georgia. Deacon Grandy Ridley and his wife, Mrs. Shalonda Ridley of Unadilla, Georgia. And Mr. Azel Ridley Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Nita Ridley of Fort Myers, Florida. A host of beloved nieces and nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Ray Charles Ingram, age 68, of 132 Mixon Street, Unadilla, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Ray Charles Ingram, age 68, will be held today, Sunday, January 9th at 1 p.m. graveside at the Evergreen Cemetery in Unadilla, Georgia. The Reverend Kobe McKenzie will officiate. Mr. Casey Bernard Patrick, better known as Doc, age 55, of 1215 East Blue Lane, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, January 4th, at his residence in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Vanessa Walker Patrick of Cordele, Georgia, his loving and devoted children, Mr. Zachary Patrick of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Javaski Walker of Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Andravius Walker Harvey of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Jasmine Hardiman of Cordele, Georgia, and Miss Ebony Shiloh of Jacksonville, Florida. 8 beloved grandchildren, his beloved and devoted sisters, Mrs. Regina Robinson and her husband, Mr. Rodney Robinson of Tennessee, Miss Daphne Patrick and Mrs. Pamela Collier and her husband, Mr. Frank Collier, both of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Katrina Crane of Orlando, Florida, his beloved brothers, Mr. Eric Keith Putman of Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Quentin Addy of Orlando, Florida, his beloved sisters and brothers-in-law, Miss Cynthia Bennett, Miss Shamika Brown, Mr. Willie Jr. Walker and his wife, Mrs. Betty Walker, and Mr. Frederick Walker, his beloved godparents, Mr. Billy and Miss Thomasine Poole, his beloved nieces, nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Casey Bernard Patrick, age 55, of Cordele, Georgia, better known as Doc. The funeral service for Mr. Casey Bernard Patrick, better known as Doc, age 55, will be held Saturday, January 15th at 10 a.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Portico in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Johnny Dean, pastor of the New Poplar Springs Baptist Church, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation will be Friday, January 14, from 1 until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Deacon Dan Colson, age 69, chairman of the Board of Deacons of the Beautiful Zion Baptist Church of 496 Lamar Road, Americus, Georgia, died Saturday, January 8th in Americus, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Charlie May Colson of Americus, Georgia, His loving and devoted daughters, Mrs. Tanya Starks and her husband, Mr. Bubba Starks, Mrs. Martasha Spears and her husband, Minister Antonia Spears, and Miss Katrina Colson and her companion, Kenya, all of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Pamela Harvey and Miss Kimberly Barrett and her husband, Mr. Eric Barrett, both of Americus, Georgia. His beloved grandchildren, great-grandchildren, a devoted brother, Deacon Willie Colson Jr., and his wife, Mother Vanessa Colson of Cordele, Georgia. His loving and devoted sisters, Mrs. Brenda Frederick and her husband, Deacon Gregory Frederick of Cordele, Georgia, and Miss Emma Jean Colson of Albany, Georgia. A host of devoted nieces, nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Chairman Deacon Dan Colson, age 69, of 496 Lamar Road, Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Chairman Deacon Dan Colson, age 69, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams funeral directors serving Cordele and Vienna are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. As always, we do remind you concerning our pre-funeral arrangements planning available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, with packages available with a single pay, a 3-year pay, a 5-year pay, and a 10-year pay. So please stop by and talk with us concerning your pre-funeral arrangements needs available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. And also whole life insurance is available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.
And now for our announcements. The New Poplar Springs Baptist Church invites everyone to join them for worship service today, beginning at 9:45 a.m. You may join them via conference call by calling 253-993-3761. Again, that number is 253-993-3761. Pastor Johnny Dean, pastor. The Spring Hill Baptist Church, Tippeville, Georgia, invites everyone to worship with them each first and third Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m. Sister Mary Ann Lewis is the secretary. Deacon Edmund Lewis is chairman of deacons. Reverend Choice Cobb Sr. is the pastor. Christ Chapel, Unadilla, Georgia, weekly food pantry is open every Saturday from 9 a.m. until 12 o'clock noon. Ms. Jeanette Taylor, pastor relief trainer. The Ebenezer Baptist Church service will be held via conference call. The dial-in number is 346-248-7799. The pass code is 228-890-9553. You may join them for worship service beginning at 11 o'clock a.m. Deacon Morris McClendon is the chairman of deacons. Reverend Samuel Stokes is the pastor. The Evergreen Baptist Church worship service will be held each fourth Sunday beginning at 11 o'clock a.m. Face masks are required and social distancing will be practiced. Sister Bertha L. Thomas is the secretary. Deacon John David Law is the chairman of deacons. Reverend David Thomas is the pastor. The Shady Grove CME Church will have worship service, Sunday school at 10 o'clock a.m., worship service at 11 o'clock a.m. Mask must be worn and social distance is required. Brother Peyton Beal, chairman of stewards. Reverend Sadie Jackson is the pastor. The Greater Mars Tabernacle Baptist Church invites you to worship with them today via Facebook Live. Worship service will begin at 9 o'clock a.m. Tuesday, midday prayer conference at 12 o'clock noon. Thursday, prayer meeting and Bible study is held at 6 o'clock p.m. The call-in number for the conference call is 229-329-7611. 229-329-7611. Mother Lucille Shazer, church mother. Deacon Arthur L. Parker, chairman of deacons. Dr. K.M. Williams is the pastor. The Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church invites everyone to pull up and praise with them each Sunday morning, beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. Reverend Gregory Williams is the pastor. The St. King Baptist Church, Cordial, invites everyone to worship with them each first and third Sunday at 8 o'clock a.m. for an hour power worship service, at 9 o'clock a.m. for Sunday school, and at 10:15 a.m. worship service. Reverend Woody Burnham is the pastor. The Mount Zion First African Baptist Church conference call scheduled for Sunday morning begins at 10 o'clock a.m. Prayer Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 o'clock noon. Bible study is held each Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m. The conference call-in number is 339-209-6419. 339-209-6419. Deacon Joe Wedges is the chairman of deacons. Dr. Dan James III is the pastor. The Gethsemane Baptist Church invites everyone to worship with them via Zoom call on Sunday beginning at 10:30 a.m. The call-in number is 312-626-6799. The meeting ID number is 810-300-14192. The passcode is 435708. Bible study is held each Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. via conference call, and that number is 229-234-9066. Mother Mary Butler is the church mother. Deacon Johnny Wilson is the chairman of deacons. Brother Cecil Stroger is the pastor. The Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church will not have worship service in the church sanctuary, but they extend a cordial invitation for you to worship with them on Facebook Live or on their conference line beginning this morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Dr. Deanne Hosley, pastor-elect. The Shady Road Baptist Church worship service each second and fourth Sunday. Weekly Bible study is held each Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Sister Lovey Wheel is the church mother. Deacon Bobby Barn is the chairman of deacons. Reverend Kelvin Drake Sr. is the pastor. The New Oak Road Baptist Church invites everyone to join them on Facebook Live for worship service beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. Deacon Alonzo Jones is the chairman of deacons. Reverend W.W. Wilson is the pastor. The Davis Chapel CME Church will have a worship service each second and fourth Sunday. Services will begin at 10 o'clock a.m. Face mask is required. Brother Ruby Barrett is the chairman of stewards. Reverend Arnell Wilburn is the pastor. The Crossroad Baptist Church will have in-house worship service today beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. Everyone in attendance is asked to wear a face mask and practice social distancing. Deacon Jimmy C. Mumphrey is the chairman of deacons. Reverend Nelson Maynor is the pastor. The M.D. Whitus Medical Institute, formerly the A.S. Clark School, will be conducting both the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccine on Wednesday and Friday from 10 o'clock a.m. until 3 o'clock p.m. Vaccination shots for children from ages 5 to 12 are now being offered, as well as the booster. Walk-in visits are acceptable. Appointments are not required. Dr. Matthew W. Whitus, M.D., and we encourage each of you who are still considering whether or not you're going to take the vaccination to please do so. This is very much needed for our community and all around as the virus continues to spread throughout our community. The regular monthly meeting of the Crisp County branch of the NAACP will be held this afternoon at 4 o'clock p.m. at Blackshear Place. All members are asked to attend. Social distancing and other COVID-19 precautions will be adhered to. Reverend Isaac Owens is the branch president.
We would like to take this opportunity this morning to congratulate the Honorable Judge Gail Sims on her retirement. And we would like to inform each of you also the retirement celebration scheduled for this afternoon has been canceled because of the rise of the virus in our community. But we congratulate Judge Sims on her many years of service to our community. We pray that God will bless her as she continues to move into this next phase. And we wish for her much success and much rest during her retirement. Again, congratulations to the Honorable Judge Gail Sims. That concludes our announcements for this morning.
And now for dedication. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following: in loving memory of Mr. James Smith, better known as Teddy, who would have celebrated his birthday January 6th. Dedication requested by his beloved children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and his grandson, Deacon Kenneth Smith Jr., gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Mr. Earl Leary Sr., who departed this life January 10th, 1991. Dedication requested by his beloved wife, Mrs. Willie Mae Leary, the children, Deacon Eddie and Sister Faye Leary, Miss Patricia Leary, Mr. Eddie and Miss Julia Leary, and his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and the entire Leary family. In loving memory of Mr. Earl Leary Sr., who departed this life January 10th, 1991, gone but not forgotten. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following. Happy birthday to Miss Kylie Smith, who celebrated her birthday Wednesday, January 5th. Dedication requested by her beloved parents, her brothers, her grandparents, her great-grandmother, the entire Smith, Kendall, and Harmon family. Happy birthday and many, many more. Happy birthday to Deacon S. Connie James of the New Oak Grove Baptist Church, who celebrated her birthday Wednesday, January 5th. Dedication requested by her beloved family. And happy birthday, special birthday wishes goes out to our very own Mrs. Aletha Askew, also of the New Oak Grove Baptist Church clerk and trustee, who celebrated her birthday on Saturday, January 8th. Dedication requested by the Askew Jones family, all of the members of the New Oak Grove Baptist Church, and the staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Says happy birthday to Sister Aletha Askew on January 8th. Happy birthday and many, many more. Happy birthday goes out to our friend and brother, Deacon William O. Durham, and his twin, Mr. Walter O. Durham, who celebrate their birthday actually today on January 6th, on January 9th. Dedication requested by their beloved family. Mrs. Robin, you got to step it up for him now. Deacon William O. Durham celebrating his birthday along with his twin on today, January 9th. Happy birthday, Brother Deacon, and many, many more. Happy birthday to our special Mrs. Dorothy Rose Jones, who is celebrating her birthday today, January 9th. Dedication requested by all of her children, her grandchildren, and the entire Jones family and the staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Happy birthday to our very own Mrs. Dorothy Rose Jones on today, member of the Mount Zion First African Baptist Church. Happy birthday, Mrs. Dorothy Rose Jones. Happy birthday to Miss Kimberly Felton, who is celebrating her birthday today, Sunday, January 9th. Dedication requested by her parents, Mr. George and Mrs. Annette Felton, her beloved grandmother, Miss Easter May Sanders, and the entire Felton and Sanders family. Happy birthday, Miss Kimberly Felton, on today, Sunday, January 9th. Happy birthday to the Reverend W.W. Wilson, pastor of the New Oak Grove Baptist Church, who will celebrate his birthday Monday, January 10th. Dedication requested by his beloved wife, the children, grandchildren, and the members of the New Oak Grove Baptist Church. Happy birthday to Deacon Joel Smith, who will celebrate his birthday Monday, January 10th. Dedication requested by the entire Smith family. Happy birthday to Mrs. Barbara Talbot Walker, who will celebrate her birthday Monday, January 10th. And also happy birthday to Mr. Lonnie Walker, who will celebrate his birthday Tuesday, January 11th. Dedication requested by the entire Walker family to Mrs. Barbara Talbot Walker and Mr. Lonnie Walker. Happy birthday and many more. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following: Deacon James Smith and family, to Sister Gloria Walker and family, and all of the members of the Marthana Living Way of Christ Church of DeSoto, Georgia, Mrs. Elizabeth Banks and family, Deacon and Mrs. Lauren Wellens and family, Mrs. Gwendolyn Henderson and family, Mrs. Eddie Ruth White and family, Miss Willie Mae Crapp and family, to the Pittman and Trice family, the Jackson, Westbrook, Kinchin, and Green family, to Overseer Annie Reynolds and Elder Leroy Reynolds and family of Vienna, Georgia, Deacon Johnny and Sister Vera Perry and family, Vienna, Georgia, Mother Mary Benjamin and family, Mrs. Calden Wallace and family, Mr. Mandalay Johnson and family, Mr. and Mrs. Willie B. Barnes and family, Vienna, Georgia, Deacon Edward and Sister Ethel Montfrey and family, Mr. Rosby Anderson and family, Mr. Mika Hardy and family, Mr. Marcus Carter and family, Miss Tia James and family, Mrs. Jasmine Smith and family, Mr. and Mrs. Jerome Anderson and family, Deacon George Jordan and family of Vienna, Georgia, Mr. Justin Ross and family, Mrs. Mary Frances Mathis and family, Mrs. Jeanette West and family, Mrs. Mattie Sue Bryan and family, Mayor and Mrs. Eddie Daniels and family, Vienna, Georgia, Mr. and Mrs. Roosevelt Lucas and family, Mr. and Mrs. Sonny Daniels and family, Deacon and Mrs. Carl Reuben Smith and family, Mrs. Fannie Mae Lester and family, Deacon Theodore Key and family, the family of Deacon and Mrs. Joseph Williams of Lilly, Georgia, Mrs. Sakithia Bryant and family, Mr. and Mrs. John Henry Bembry and family, Mrs. Carrie Mae Holt and family, Deacon and Mrs. Eddie Clyde Allman and family, Deacon and Mrs. Eddie B. Woodson and family, Mr. James Boston and family, Mrs. Annie Watson and family, Mr. and Mrs. Larry Harris and family, Mrs. Jasper Bryant and family, Chairman Deacon and Mrs. Morris McClendon and family, the family of the late Deacon L.C. Chives, Mr. E.K. Cheney and family, Mr. and Mrs. Carl Whitehead and family, the family of the late Deacon Times Whitehead of Unadilla, Georgia, Mr. and Mrs. W.B. Bryant and family, Mrs. Ola Beal and family, the Reverend Charles Anderson and family of Unadilla, Georgia, Deacon and Mrs. London Childs and family, Mrs. Ethel Ross and family, Mr. Evan Dawson and family, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson Jenkins and family, Mrs. Laverne Anderson and family, Mrs. Rebecca Brown and family, Mother Louise James Everett and family, Deacon Raymond Anderson and family, Mrs. Beulah Anderson and family, Mrs. Mary Lizzie Bryant and family, Mrs. Doretha Williams and family, Mrs. Deborah Redney and family, Mrs. Alice Oliver and family, Miss Janie Winters and family, the Reverend and Mrs. Tommy Law and family, Deacon David Crosby and family, Mr. Calvin Lester and family, Mrs. Betty Jean James and family, the Reverend and Mrs. Layfield Buckholz and family of Unadilla, Georgia, Mrs. Geneva West and family, Mr. Walter Kingdom and family, Deacon Walter Brown and family of Vienna, Georgia, Mrs. Eddie Cobb and family, Mr. and Mrs. Frank Lester and family, Mrs. Ethel Lee Jones and family, Mrs. Angela Travis and family, Miss Mary Gary and family, Mrs. Ida B. Waters and family, Mrs. Rosa Mae Cardwell and family, Miss Christine Barron and family, Miss Seth Leggett and family, Miss Daisy Wiggins and family, Mrs. Linda Leggett and family, Mrs. Alberta Felder and family, Miss Cecilia Williams and family, Miss Leanne Wade and family, Mrs. Mary Bryan and family, Mr. and Mrs. Dennis Everett and family, Mrs. Eleanor Gay and family, Mrs. Isaiah Ross and family, Mrs. Sam Gaston and family, Mr. William Gaston and family, Mrs. Rosa Mae McKenzie and family, the Hunt and Collier family, the Lester family, Mr. Lester Kennedy and family, Mrs. Donna Howard and family, Mrs. Jenny Smith and family, Mr. and Mrs. Jimmy Redding and family, Deacon and Mrs. Benny Howard and family, Mr. and Mrs. Willis C. Washington and family, the Adams family, Mrs. Lily Tukes and family, Mrs. Carol Shaw and family, Mr. Bobby Lee Royal and family, Mr. and Mrs. John Hoggrove and family, Mr. Son Marshall and family, Deacon and Mrs. Leroy Jane and family, Deacon Elmo James and family, Mrs. Alice West and family, Mrs. Mary B. Sutton and family, Deacon and Mrs. Lewis Maynard and family, Deacon Lonnie Anderson and family, Mrs. Evelyn Smith and family, Mrs. Rosa Howard and family. Our first selection for this morning.
Oh, you know that.
devotion this morning is dedicated to the following: Deaconess Martha Ann Cross and family, my neighbor Miss Theron Jones and family, the entire Jones and Tarbert family, Mother Dorothy Tarbert and family, Brother Johnny and Sister Juanita Tarbert and family, Deacon and Mrs. John Stubbs and family, Deacon and Mrs. Donald Tarbert and family, Mrs. Isaiah Carter and family, Mrs. Melba Butts Carter and the entire Butts and Carter family, Mr. Roscoe Applin and family, Mr. and Mrs. Willie Frank Collier and family, Mr. Gus Williams and family, Mrs. Marion Felton and family, Deacon Lonnie Hoggebrook and family, the entire Hoggebrook family, Sister Sylvia Blackshear and family, Miss Sharon Chambliss and family, Mrs. Frances Chambliss and family, Mrs. Verdale Butts and family, Mr. James Grant and family, Mrs. Curtina Grant and family, Miss Debbie Reed and family, Mrs. Stephanie Grant and family, Mother Grace Patrick and family, Mr. and Mrs. Jimmy Passmore and family, Mr. and Mrs. Keith Bryant and family, Miss Denise Walker and family, Mr. Eddie Heston and family, Mr. and Mrs. Charles Kerr and family, Mr. and Mrs. Joshua Woodson and family, Mrs. Bernice Smith and family, Chairman Deacon and Mrs. Sammy McGill and family, the Honorable Mayor Juanita Kinchin of the city of Warwick, Georgia, Mr. Willie Shallow and family, Deacon and Mrs. Charles Glenn and family, Deacon and Mrs. Charlie Westbrook and family, the family of the late Mother Cornelia Jackson and family, Mrs. Dorothy Lucas and family, Mr. and Mrs. Dwight Tennant and family, Miss Sue James and family, Mrs. Joanne Atkins and family, Miss Faustine Carruthers and family, Mrs. Linda Wilson and family, the Reverend and Mrs. Jeff Wilson and family, and the members of the Odom Grove Baptist Church, Mrs. Donna Cobb and family, Pastor Jimmy Felton and the entire Felton family, Mrs. B.J. Ezel and family and the staff of BJ's Diner and the entire Felton family and member of the late Deacon Timothy Felton, Mr. and Mrs. James Palmer and family, our beloved church mother, Mother Lucille Shazer, age 108, Mother Lucille Shazer, age 108, Deacon and Mrs. Willie Shivers and family, Mrs. Carrie Brooks and family, Mother Easter May Byram and family, the entire Byram family, the Reverend and Mrs. Woody Barnum and family, Miss Marion Golfin and family, Mr. and Mrs. Charlie Claw and family, Deacon Michael Morgan and family, Deacon Henry King of the Gethsemane Missionary Baptist Church, Mr. and Mrs. Alonzo Flood and family, Deacon and Mrs. Otis Blanks and family, Mr. Carl Bryan and family, Mr. and Mrs. James Russell Brunell and family, Mother Martha Cutts and family, Minister Emma Love Jackson and family, Mrs. Janice Jones and family, Mr. Willie Frank Hayes and family, Mrs. Juanita Jefferson and family, Mrs. Betty Taylor and family, Mrs. Betty Oliver and family, Mrs. Diane McClendon and family, Mrs. Maggie Jackson and family, Miss Mary Hill and family, Mrs. Loretta Coley and family, Mrs. Geraldine Harvey and family, Mrs. Willie Bell Lawson and family, Deacon and Mrs. Samuel Mills and family, Mrs. Lula Bell Hill and family, Deacon and Mrs. Johnny C. Hillsman and family, Mrs. Ruby Kinchin and family, Deacon and Mrs. Bobby James and family, Mrs. Priscilla Thomas and family, Mother Willie McGill and family, Mrs. Helen Ray and family, Mr. and Mrs. Jesse Walker and family, Mr. Edward Johnson and family, Mrs. Trudy Mae Johnson's family, Deacon Curtis Lucas Jr. and family, Mrs. Carrie Bell Woodson and family, Miss Clara Graham and family, Mrs. Angela Jones and family, Deacon James Beal and family, Mrs. Ruben L. Anderson and family, Commissioner Vesta Bill Shepherd and family, Mrs. Charlie Ray and family, Mrs. Kenny Staley and family, the Reverend and Mrs. Eddie Gant and family, Mr. and Mrs. Bernard Williams and family, Mrs. Annie Curry and family, Mr. Nathaniel Curry and family, Deacon and Mrs. Charles Harris Sr. and family, Minister Annette Felton Clark and family, Mr. Willie Holmes and family, Mrs. Pearlie Griggs and family, Mr. Willie Jackson and family, Mr. Scotty Anderson and family, Mrs. Jackie Ridley and family, Mr. Robert Harvey and family, Mr. Sean Wood and family, Mr. Carl Word and family, Apostle and Mrs. Morris James Jones and family, Mr. and Mrs. Tim Lockett and family, Mr. and Mrs. the family of the late Mr. Avery Hillsman, his mother, Mrs. Gwen Hillsman, and the entire family. It is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcement. Mr. Ray Charles Ingram, age 68, of 132 Mixon Street, Unadilla, Georgia, died Sunday, January 2nd, at his residence in Unadilla, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Ray Charles Ingram, age 68, will be held today, Sunday, January 9th, at 1 p.m., graveside at the Evergreen Cemetery in Unadilla, Georgia. The Reverend Kobe McKenzie will officiate. Mr. Casey Bernard Patrick, better known as Doc, age 55, of Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, January 4th, at his residence in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Casey Bernard Patrick, better known as Doc, age 55, will be held Saturday, January 15th at 10 a.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Portico in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Johnny Dean, pastor of the New Poplar Springs Baptist Church, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The public walk of visitation will be Friday, January 14th from 1 until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Deacon Dan Colson, age 69, chairman of the Board of Deacons of the Beautiful Zion Baptist Church, 496 Lamar Road, Americus, Georgia, died Saturday, January 8th in Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Chairman Deacon Dan Colson, age 69, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Diana are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Our next and final selection for this morning is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones were laid to rest during the past week. The family of Mr. Eddie Lewis Gaines of Cordele, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran Mr. Charles Edward Harmon of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Tommy Lee Kendall of Unadilla, Georgia. This selection is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones will be laid to rest during this week. The family of Mr. Ray Charles Ingram of Unadilla, Georgia. The family of Mr. Casey Bernard Patrick of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Deacon Dan Colson, chairman of the Board of Deacons of the Beautiful Zion Baptist Church of Americus, Georgia. This selection is dedicated to all of the sick and shut in, to all patients in the local and surrounding hospitals, nursing homes, and rehabilitation centers, to our beloved ministers and their devoted family members, to all retired educators, to the men and women serving in our armed forces, both stateside and abroad, to all veterans, and to everyone who listens to our program on each Sunday morning. It's a pleasure for us to bring it to you. Our program goes out in memory of our past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. Goes out to my wife, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, to my son, Jai Wilkerson Parker. This election goes out to my mother-in-law, Mrs. Billy Ann Hall and family, to my brother, retired Chief Master Sergeant Norman F. Dexter, and his wife, Dr. Gwendolyn Maxine Dexter, and our grandson, Noble. This election goes out to my sisters, Mrs. Maddie Mae Johnson, better known as Sister Girl, and Mrs. Patsy Jackson, the husbands of Jim Jackson of Cordele, Georgia. This election goes out to my nephew, Deacon Kenneth Smith, program chairman of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, and to our pastor, Dr. K.M. Williams, to his wife, Sister Kathy Williams, and family, and the entire Williams family of Albany and Cordele, Georgia. Goes out to their son, the Reverend Christopher Williams, pastor of the Antioch Baptist Church of Cuthbert, Georgia. This election this morning goes out again to our very own Judge Gail Sims on her retirement in Secular. We thank her for years of dedication and years of service to this Cordele, Christ County community, and certainly we wish her Godspeed during her retirement. This election goes out to her brother, Brother James Leon Hughes, and the members of the Hilltop Church of Christ. This election goes out to Mrs. Bobby Joe Robertson family, Mr. F.D. Lawton and family, Mrs. Sheena Jackson and family, the Redding family, Mr. Albert and Mrs. Keith Williams and family, Mrs. Shirley Faye Green and family, the Relaford and the Cantrell family. And again, to each of you on this second Sunday in January 2022, God bless you.
Yes, I'm going to walk. Oh, that will keep my way. Oh, child.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you've enjoyed our program. Tune in again on next Sunday morning.
Well,
In your time of need, contact the competent, capable, and dependable staff at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.